change the rules in the middle of the game. That's not the American way. We don't pass a law, have certain conditions, and then decide, oh, we're going to rewrite that, and if you happen to be out of the country, even if you have a valid visa and are a permanent resident, we're not going to let you back in.
So you think that this just went too far?
It went way too far. It was sloppily done. And the president himself raised the specter of religious discrimination. You know, everybody points to the law, the McCarran Act in 1952, that gives the president wide authority on immigration. They don't like to look at the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act, which in fact says that you cannot discriminate against persons for immigration based on race, religion, country of origin, and that essentially is what the president seems to have done and signaled quite widely and openly during the campaign.
You have said that immigration is good for our economy. Explain your thinking on this.
Look, Americans are very good at doing certain jobs, the sort of middle range of the jobs. We don't have enough computer engineers, enough scientists, enough mathematicians to take some of the jobs that we need in that area, nor do we have people willing to do the jobs like picking our crops, processing our poultry, cleaning our buildings, taking care of young children. So we need immigrants at the high end and also at the low end of the skills spectrum. And frankly, we don't have a way to get enough of either. We have no way of getting low-skilled immigrants to the United States currently, and we have a very limited ability to get high-skilled immigrants, and the president has said he's even going to revoke that ability. He's going to roll back the H-1B visa program.
Because one of the interesting things that you wrote is you said without younger immigrants paying into the Social Security system and Medicare, those would eventually collapse.
Absolutely. And as somebody who is on Social Security and on Medicare, thank you to all of the young people out there working, and thank you to the immigrants, because without their contributions, and by the way, that includes illegal immigrants to the United States, somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of people who are in the country illegally pay into the Social Security system. And often they pay in on numbers which are not their own, and so they will never be able to draw on that contribution, and it pays for those of us who are already drawing on Social Security, and so we ought to be thanking them.
So if you were advising President Trump, what would you tell him today?
Well, if he has legitimate concerns about national security, if he thinks our vetting procedures need to be improved, that's perfectly legitimate. But what you do is you do it prospectively. You send out a draft order, you circulate it to DHS, to the State Department, to all of the various agencies. You go through the normal federal rulemaking procedure, and if you do it that way, you're likely to get a much better product. But it can't be based on religious discrimination. It's got to be based on real, credible evidence of some terrorist ties and activities, and that's what he failed to do.
He promised the country he was going to throw all the rules out. Isn't that what he's doing?
Well, except that we live in a constitutional system. You're not free to throw out the rules, and you're certainly not free to ignore due process. The Fifth Amendment to the Constitution guarantees every person, not every citizen, every person, due process of law, and he denied those persons who have valid visas that due process when he initiated this order.
You just recently wrote that President Trump is laying the groundwork for his own destruction. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think his temperament is terrible. I mean, I think somebody should get in there and seize his Twitter account and change the password and don't let him have access to it, because he does harm to himself and his agenda, as well as, I think, doing harm to our system. He's really devaluing the office of the presidency, and it strikes me particularly hard because I worked there. I worked with Ronald Reagan, who was a great president. He would never have done anything like this. He took advice from everyone, and he weighed it carefully. And he got input from people. He didn't just shoot from the hip. And here you have a guy shooting for the hip, often without the proper information. He brags that he doesn't read. He doesn't want any memo that's longer than a page long. I remember when President Reagan used to take the briefing books back up to the residence every night. I participated in some of those briefings, and this was a man who was very careful, who studied things. This president doesn't seem to.
So if he called you tomorrow and said, come help me deal with this immigration issue, would you do it?
Well, I can't imagine that such a thing would take place. But look, I want President Trump to succeed because I think it's good for the country if we have a successful president. But he can't succeed if he continues on this path. He's undoing himself. He's undoing his legacy. He's hurting the party that I've been a member of for many years. And he's really doing harm to the conservative movement.
We will certainly keep watching what President Trump is up to. Thank you so much, Linda. We appreciate you being here and talking with us today.
Thank you,
on
Ann.
Politics Unplugged. Our pleasure.